How y'all doing? Welcome aboard. I'm your conductor today, as you can obviously tell. Go ahead, step off that platform. Don't be a scaredy cat. Get on board. Today we're going down the tracks of why Gen Z can't start a revolution. Look, you never know where the train's gonna take you. All right. This one's by Cole Hastings.
On November 9th,
Get out my
1989,
way.
the fall of the Berlin Wall marked one of the most dramatic moments of political change in modern history. For nearly 3 decades, the wall had divided the city of Berlin and symbolized the broader ideological split of the Cold War between the Soviet-aligned East Germany and the democratic West Germany. But in the months leading up to its collapse, hundreds of thousands of East Germans began protesting across the country, especially in the weekly Monday demonstrations in Leipzig, demanding freedom to travel and democratic reforms. As the protests grew and the government struggled to contain them, officials announced that travel restrictions would be lifted. Within hours, massive crowds gathered at the wall, and overwhelmed border guards eventually opened the checkpoints.
Is this 1080?
People climbed onto the concrete barrier and began
It's
chipping
1080.
pieces
It's
away
not
with
me.
hammers.
It's the
Over the following months, large
right
sections
here. 1998. Okay, it's just 1080p for
of
1998.
the wall were dismantled, as the East German government collapsed under the pressure of mass but largely peaceful protests. When we reflect on protests or revolts or movements of the past, we tend to view them as something tangible, something that genuinely sparked the change that protesters wanted to see. Sure, the past is littered with stories of protesters who tried and failed, but success stories like this were happening almost any time the people of a nation or state got so fed up with the current regimes that they felt like they had no other choice but to act. Today, I'd argue that most people feel hopeless and that there's nothing we can effectively do to revolt against the obviously evil forces of authoritarian governments and big tech corporations. But what if I told you that was their intention all along? Some of the greatest minds of previous...
Let me go ahead. Let me just go ahead and have my moment. I think back in the day when there was a protest going on, like you knew like this shit was real, right? I think nowadays it's like because look, I'm just gonna say I don't care about if I derail the train, right? There's so many bullshit protests. There's so many, dude. They're protesting for everything. It has turned the idea of a protest into a wet spaghetti noodle, man. Like when you hear the word protest, it's like, okay, what bullshit now? Or what is this? What is that? Right? It's like you have turned the idea of a protest into just a wet noodle idea because you've protested so much. You've killed the idea of it. You know what I mean? And because it's like we're protesting this and that, but it's like you got the Island Files, right? The Epstein Files, right? Video getting 2 views. But it's like you've got this. It's like nobody's protesting, right? Like it's all like online comment section protesting. It's the only place you hear talk about it, right? Some YouTube videos, yes, all this, but it's like you see no in real world protesting, and this makes me think that all the other all the other protests are like state manufactured nonsense, right? Because like this, it's weird that's like people are protesting, XYZ, everything on the list, right? But no one's protesting the big kahuna. It makes it feel like everything else is like just manufactured by somebody. You get what I mean?
Yes, generation.
Like it's not an authentic protest, right? This is not an authentic accumulation of people protesting something. It's manufactured. How's it going, guys? I want to clarify what I mean is that instead of you've got people sitting out here in the highway so we don't burn fossil fuels, all these protests, right? But it's like where's the protest for like taxes? Where's the protest for the files, as I've just mentioned, right? Where's the protest for when these people who belong in jail are getting out of jail and doing harm to like the law-abiding citizens, right? Like you see it almost every week. Somebody that should 100% obviously be in jail, they're let out. Just, oh, yep, it's fine. Here, serve this like 4-month sentence, this, that, right? You got 100 arrests. Oh, you've got 70 felonies. Oh, yeah, here. Now you're out in the population with everybody else. And then boom, what do you know? Someone's daughter, their wife, their mother, grandparents, somebody ends up getting killed. When that should never have happened. because that person should be judges who live in their gated community unleash this hell on people because they're emotionally self-inflicting society. It's like, where are the protests for that? Right? We've got protests for everything under the sun, but it seems like when it comes to anything important, right? Because like, I don't care who you are, having violent people, violent criminals in your community is not good no matter who you are. It's like, where's the protest for this kind of stuff, right? It's like, instead it's like, hey, let's go protest for this and that, and then the worst ones are, oh, hey, let's go block a highway up. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of things I feel like should be at the top of the list. And it's like, yes, protesting is good for the most part, right? You know, that's what the amendment is for. That's why the Constitution exists for America and everything, right? It's a good thing. But it's like, is this top priority? Is this the big cheese? But anyways, I'll let you guys get back to the tracks.
Predicted this, that we would become so sedated with entertainment and information that all we would do is complain among ourselves instead of gaining class consciousness. So in this video, I want to explain how we got here, why it feels like every protest or revolt is ineffective, and what it might actually take to start seeing.
There is literally in IRL, in real world, in real life, saturation of protests.
The change that most of us want to see in the world. There's a phrase that dates all the way back to around 100 AD, attributed to the Roman poet Juvenal, bread and circuses. In the Roman Empire, rulers used massive public entertainment like gladiator contests and chariot races, along with free grain to keep citizens happy and prevent civil unrest. Seeing what was going on, Juvenal used the term as a negative metaphor to explain what happens when citizens sedate themselves with pleasure and comfort. As he puts it in Satire X, the people that once bestowed commands, consulships, legions, and all else now concerns itself no more, and longs eagerly for just two things: bread and circuses.
Yep.
Learning from writings like these and comparing them to his own time.
That's what, like, as I've gotten older, and especially in the recent like couple years, I've just become so like I don't, like, you know, you always have this left right pull and everything. I've gotten just so exhausted of it. You really, like, now is the time that it is so clear, right? Yes, there are differences, but it's like it's the same two sides of the same coin that you use to pay for a puppet show. Do you get what I mean?
Period, English writer and philosopher Aldous Huxley warned citizens about the danger of too much pleasure, updated for the modern age in his 1923 essay, Pleasures, published in Vanity Fair. I highly recommend everyone watching this to read that short essay, but I'm just going to pull the most important and relevant passages from that to keep this video succinct. Huxley begins his essay by clarifying the enemy of our restlessness and depression. The dangers which confront our civilization are not so much the external dangers, wild men, wars, and the bankruptcy that wars bring after them. The most alarming dangers are those which menace it from within, that threaten the mind rather than the body and estate of contemporary man. In other words, like I've said in previous videos, the wars our generation are fighting are less physical, although that statement holds a bit less weight at the moment, and more spiritual than anything else. Modern pleasures have gotten, quote, progressively more imbecile, such that actually using our brains to accomplish important tasks is almost entirely optional. Huxley observed this over a century ago now. He argued that distractions used to require at least a baseline level of intellectual effort and passion. For example, in the 17th century...
Bro, you think about AI is going to make it? We couldn't even do a revolution if we wanted to. We're going to have to ask ChatGPT, how do we do a revolution? Your shit is immediately getting pinged.
Royal families would listen to sermons and academical disputes regarding theology and metaphysics. The common people engaged in the exercise of a certain intelligence, too. Their form of entertainment included intricate plays, and they were able to comprehend works like Othello and Hamlet by William Shakespeare. Huxley also explains how peasants went through traditional rites like dances and ceremonies. As he puts it, their pleasures were intelligent and alive, and it was they who, by their own efforts, entertained themselves. Now, the majority of the pleasures we engage with are less participatory and more passive. For Huxley's generation, this meant things like the gramophone, otherwise known as a record player, the press, where news was filled with democracy.
This is the OG dude warning people about TikTok. He's out here talking about the gramophone is the modern day TikTok, man. No, it's a bad distraction.
Advertised information that did not require much thinking, and watching sports rather than playing them. It's pretty funny that Huxley and other thinkers at the time saw people using a record player as something that was making them dumber, and it just goes to show that there is a bit of nuance with this, that not all advancements in technology making things easier, like listening to music, is necessarily damaging like Huxley seemed to have thought it was, and that's where I would disagree. Like, I do think just a little bit of what he was saying was basically, oh, anything that makes something easier and more accessible is poison to the mind. But I do think he really does hit on a few great points for contemporary entertainment. Today, the smartphone has combined.
Well, I think it's like the modern day TikTok, right? Is what he was, is basically is like what the gramophone was, right? It's like instead of me picking an instrument up, learning how to play it, you know, exercising my critical thinking, making the music, it's like I could just put something on here and it would play, right? I guess that's actually kind of more equivalent of AI, right? Instead of me using my brain, I just ask ChatGPT a question. It makes me dumber. Like, I understand what he's saying.
And it's just about every single form of pleasure and entertainment you could think of into a pocketable device that we keep with us at all times. This has a myriad of negative consequences, of course. Social media makes us depressed and anxious, burnt out, and disrupts our sleep. Any sexual fantasy you desire is at your fingertips. There's not a one-to-one connection between you and the necessities of life because it's all been streamlined for convenience. These are all things that I've talked about at length on this channel, right? But what I want to talk about specifically is what happens to our ability to revolt when we drown ourselves in mindless stimulation.
I'm not gonna lie, I think I talked about... Did I just go backwards?
Firstly, social media encourages what...
Hold on.
When we drowned ourselves.
I think that's something I like working about, like when I'm doing like these wood projects with like a wood and epoxy and everything. I really like it because it's like I'm using my brain. I don't have all these distractions going on. It's nice. It's just me and the wood. We're just chilling there. It's relaxing, very relaxing.
In mindless stimulation. Firstly, social media...
I think everybody needs a hobby like that. You know what I mean?
Encourages what I would call a portrayal.
And I'm not talking, you don't have to be a woodworker, okay? Paint something, I don't know.
Of bad stuff to bad stuff actually happening pipeline. We tend to read more about bad news than good news because we're wired to seek negative information, so the algorithms reflect that, and we feel bad.
And video games can be an outlet like that as well, you know? If you're playing Minecraft, you're just chilling there building a giant mansion, you know, that can be just as relaxing.
And powerless about what's happening in the world that may or may not be portrayed accurately. Then we go and talk to our friends about it. If we can't find any sort of mutual agreement about happy stuff happening in the world, at least we can all agree that the world sucks right now, right? Well, then that inevitably is going to affect the mood that we carry into our real life interactions. We think things are really bad, partly because they actually are, but also partially because we're fed an immensely unnatural amount of bad stuff, so things actually do get worse.
Yeah.
This cycle repeats itself.
Dang, it's feeding, it's bad information, bad vibes feeds the monster that generates more. That's why you get on board, all right? Get your seat, the root beer Frosty's empty, but get some water.
Indefinitely until a force
Subscribe
enough to change it steps in, but that force rarely gets the opportunity to step in due to the second reason that social media affects our revolts, which is something that I already briefly touched upon, which is emotional numbness through overstimulation. You see, there's something very powerful that happens when we don't fill up every ounce of free time we have with doom scrolling. When you don't consume a podcast with headphones on every single time you step outside for a walk, when you don't scroll while your water bottle is filling up, when you don't default to TikTok or Instagram Reels every time something...
Even I struggle with this a little bit, man. It's hard not to just like, even if you're like walking through the parking lot, I want to start challenging myself when I'm walking through the parking lot, like not to pull out a phone, you know?
Bad happens in your life to escape the reality of that bad thing, patterns in your life start to emerge. Problems once thought to be unsolvable slowly figure themselves out in your head when you allow...
Plus, it's probably not the best. I mean, even if it's nighttime, don't walk through the parking lot with your phone on. You're going to get freaking kidnapped, all right?
your mind
I don't know.
space to breathe. When you give your brain time to process the amount of stimuli you consumed in 2 hours that would have been enough to kill a Victorian child, you start to realize something. You start to realize, wait a second, there actually are tangible ways out of this shitty situation. And come to think of it, I'm actually enraged that I'm in this situation in the first place. And what are the forces that be, the systemic issues that are causing me to feel so shitty? As much as some people might disagree, anger and being completely fed up with where you are and how the world works is often the only way to get pushed to the point where people will actually start to do something that elicits positive change. And that cannot happen if you are heavily sedated through modern forms of escapism like social media, pornography, and a video game addiction. I'm not against video games, by the way, but they are very easy to get addicted to and slip into for hours and hours at a time to just escape a shitty situation that you might have the power to change. The next thing that this
I think you should take your time to decompress. You know what I mean? I don't think playing video games is bad. Maybe if you're sitting here, you know, you're refusing to do things with your life because you want to play video games, that is bad. But getting off your 9 to 5 and playing video games, I don't think is a bad thing.
Pleasure, specifically social media, has spread is this collective view that protesting and demonstrating, getting yourself out there in that way, is inherently performative or just seen as a virtue signal. Now, there's undoubtedly a lot of influencers out there who post about some tragedy that's happened in the world, not to raise awareness, but to act like they give a shit.
Just wanted to come on here and say I do stand for what's right, and what's right now
I stand for the current thing, damn it. Come on.
Black lives do matter, and white people do have white privilege. So it's unfortunate, but fill the comments with a fist and spread the positivity and love. Let's go.
But I fear that social media has turned the act of revolting into something that is seen as cringeworthy or too try-hard in nature. If you do actually care...
Bro, I think this was such a big thing with actors, too. When actors do this stuff, I think that's why I've just, like, completely stopped caring about any actors and this and that. Because it's like, bro, I do not care. I don't care about... You know what I mean? I don't find you entertaining... I find you as an actor somewhat likable, not because of really who you are, but how well you can play a role, right? And it's like when you start spitting all this nonsense out, it's like I don't really like care. Like nobody is watching you for your political takes, right? We're watching you because you play this character on the big screen. Right? Just because you have X amount of followers does not mean that those followers translate to, oh, I can't wait to hear your political take. You know what I mean? It's like following you because they like how well you perform acting as a character.
It's often automatically labeled.
But they can say whatever they want. I mean, at the end of the day, who cares, right? But it's just like, okay, here we go again, right? Their life, they can post whatever they want. They can talk about whatever they want.
As
just don't be mad when people don't like it.
Because the way protests and other forms of revolt are portrayed on social media is usually through the lens of comedy, memes, or insults. Something adjacent to this that really grinds.
Have you ever seen that YouTube short of like the background actor where the guy's like in like a Letterman jacket? He's like, it's like bro's trying to be the main character. That's what that vibe I got. This seems like some actor.
Something adjacent to this that really grinds my gears these days is when people say they aren't political. I'm not going to lie, up until like a few years ago, this was kind of me. I thought caring about politics was just another psyop that didn't really change anything, and you're just trying to make yourself seem right. And I'm sure there's a lot of that, but like everybody is political, okay? The whole thing about not being political is a psyop. The fact that you think you cannot be political.
You think you're breaking out of the psyop. But really, you're actually just in it even more. I'm not political. That's
about something, and I'm not saying I agree with the two-party system. I think it is, it's not a good system. But saying you are not political is the psyop. Saying you don't care about politics and being fed up with the world is a contradiction.
Yeah, man, I'm not really too big on politics. But anyways, let me tell you about how much I hate my job, my boss, my landlord, my shitty health insurance, my student loans, my city's public transportation, the fact that I come home too tired to do anything after work every day, the fact that groceries cost double what they used to, the fact that no one can afford a home, the fact that my rent eats half of my paycheck, the endless wait times at the hospital, and how depressing the news always is. But yeah, man, I'm just not really big on politics.
Trust me, big government loves hearing you say stuff like that because it reinforces another reason why we all complain but nothing actually changes: the extreme divide between the average citizen. We've gotten to the point where sharing different opinions from someone is immediately labeled as wrong and a threat to another person because productive dialogue is simply incompatible on these platforms that encourage rage baiting and quick.
I think it's gotten to a point where it's like it's so bad, right? That's like if you disagree with somebody on the other side of the aisle, right? If you disagree with somebody on the other side of the short bus, it's like you will combat that person. How am I trying to think about this? All right. What I'm trying to say is, it's like there are people that hate people on the other side of the aisle so much, right? That's like you will completely negate. It's like if you ask somebody this question, right? Like realistically, if you were would you rather be locked in a room with somebody from the opposite political aisle, right? Would you rather be locked in a room with like say like a Republican or a Democrat, right? Or would you rather be locked in a room with somebody that you completely agree with politics with, but they're like an actual like despicable scummy person that's like been like charged with like these crimes, you know what I mean? It's like the person that's a Republican, they might be a great person, right? Their morals are sound, right? But it's like how you despise them so much so, right? That it's like you would rather, just because you disagree with them politically, you hate them on a level that's like you would rather if you know what? I'm about to derail the whole train right now. You're making me mad. You get what I'm saying? There's become such a despise for somebody that's like, this is a good law-abiding person. They just have a few different ideas than you. You will hate them more than the guy that you agree politically with. That's like, that commits heinous crimes. You know what I mean? Like, who would you rather be locked in a room with? The person that you agree politically with that commits heinous crimes, or the Democrat or Republican that you disagree with that is like never done anything bad? It's like that decision, I feel like, has just completely gone out the window. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Incomplete hits of misinformation. Everybody thinks they have the true, objective, correct answer to all of society and the world's problems, and nobody wants to listen to anyone else's solution that doesn't confirm their pre-existing beliefs. Getting into useful debates and discussions that actually promote some sort of change requires some of that space that I talked about earlier. It requires you to sit, think, and conceptualize your argument to strengthen it and articulate it in a good way without immediately saying, this thing bad, this thing good. And instead of collectively...
Like, I'll tell you right now, if you're pro-electric trains, get out right now. I don't care.
Coming together to fight our common enemy, big tech and authoritarian governments, we start blaming trivial matters like minorities or other people who don't look or think like us.
Skirt! What? Companies don't hire men anymore. They hire women, minorities, ABCs. Isn't DEI hires minority? Huh? Indians. And basically, men aren't being given any opportunity. There are no jobs. I have a bachelor's in science and it's meaningless. Well, that was your problem to start with. Okay. I haven't look, I've got an associate's in science and I realized how vaguely bad that degree is. I wonder why men are so broke. I mean, you guys don't buy makeup, hair, sanitary pads, bras, or any beauty products. Like, what are you guys really spending your money on? Fortnite skins. Some firearms, shoes, the latest some clothing, video games, more video games, bullshit in video games.
Blaming trivial matters like minorities or other people who don't look or think like us. Like, I promise you, dude, the reason that
Cars.
you get paid pennies for your 9 to 5 and you come home miserable and goon for 1 hour isn't because
Goon for 1 hour.
your favorite hockey team is celebrating Pride Month. That is exactly the type of thing that these big corporations want you to get mad at because it keeps us fighting among each other
Yeah,
instead
the
of
entire world is rage baiting you, and you're getting baited so bad.
coming together. And social media has been an incredible tool for reinforcing that division. And I'm not saying that entertainment itself is the enemy. Humans have been entertaining themselves since the dawn of time to escape the hardships of life. Like, we always are going to need a temporary bout of escapism in some healthy form to keep going in life, man. Like, sometimes we need to forget who we are and escape into some form of entertainment. That's a really important aspect of life.
Yep.
It's these
But I think it's become oversaturated. I think that's what, the point of the video is why you can't Gen Z start a revolution, because entertainment has become oversaturated.
temporary forms of entertainment and spectacle that are psychologically designed to keep you scrolling, exhausted, distracted, and angry that are the problem. And this is why I feel most of our efforts to create meaningful change in the world fall short. These new forms of entertainment have made it feel like no matter what we do or no matter how hard we try, nothing is going to change. So the safest thing to do is retreat
Eating
back
goy
to the
slop in my bed?
comfort of distraction.
Oh
Now
no,
we
not the
scroll,
goy
we
slop.
laugh at the absurdity of it all, we complain to our friends, and then we move on to whatever next video, outrage, or algorithm the feed presents us with, blaming our circumstances on things that have nothing at all to do with them, confusing and dividing us even further. So how do we actually start moving shit in a positive direction? If forces we can't see or hear that are unreachable, yet we know are there, are intentionally making the lives of the average person more unenjoyable and less stable, how do
Yep.
we break down a Berlin Wall that we cannot see? Well,
Dude, that is literally perfect. What he just said, literally perfect. There is a Berlin Wall up. We literally can't see or feel it, though. But you know it's there.
firstly, and I already stressed this a bit, you have to have the capacity
Stop paying for Disney Plus right now.
to get emotional enough and fed up enough to actually want to do something about it. Things are going to feel
I think with like the amount of like you talk about like, yes, there's I think there's government programs in place that even when you're not really making any money, right, you get your government assistance, right? That right there, government assistance alone, I'm sure has saved countless like crazy incidents that happen, right? Because even when you're down so bad, right, like you have government assistance to rely on, right? And a lot of times it's abused. But it's like I think that alone has like created like a cradle, like a soft landing for people where they don't tweak out.
just okay enough if you keep engaging with mindless distraction that either numbs you to the systemic issues you know are affecting you or makes you feel hopeless because a lot of that stimulation is just bad news without
Wait. wait. Pro-life activist. Jesus. Okay. Togi. What the heck is that? Loses Miami house to Steve will do it in coin flip. Still pays mortgage. New York City weighs paid parking to tackle 5.4 billion budget gap. Logan Paul's NFT purchase now worth just $155 after 97% plunge. That means Logan Paul is just gonna have to scam more.
any tangible solution. As cringe and cliche as it sounds, problems don't feel like problems
Allegedly.
until you
In
sit with them
Minecraft.
in silence.
Whatever.
That's
The
why
fucking guy sues
when
everybody.
you lay your head down on the pillow at night, your head won't shut up about everything that's wrong with your current life because it's finally given the space to talk to you about those things. I'm calling myself out here too, by the way.
Dude, I feel that because sometimes when I'm laying down at night and I'm trying to go to sleep, like I got to leave the TV on because it distracts me, right? Because my brain starts going so much that it's like I can't fall asleep without something distracting me, because it's like my brain is going, like my brain just can't shut off with everything going on. My brain has trouble shutting off, so it's like I have to sleep with the TV on, right? Sometimes Misconductor be like, "Can you turn the TV off?" And it's like it's harder to go to sleep with the TV off because I'm left with my own thoughts. Crazy.
Secondly, there needs to be a greater call to action after awareness. Now, this isn't to say that protesting, getting out there, making some sort of sign, and making a certain movement more aware is ineffective. It absolutely does raise awareness and brings to light some issues that people maybe weren't even aware of, and then maybe that makes enough of them fed up to actually join in on the movement too. But often there isn't a clear sense of direction or solution after the fact. Another YouTube creator, Deja, made a great video on this topic where she discussed how protesting actually isn't meant to be the solution. It's only meant to agitate, disrupt, and bring people together. But after the fact, people often just revert back to regular life as if nothing happened.
So I'm saying
because
protesting has become such a limp noodle thing.
They're not really sure what to do next. So first, let's just talk about on an individual level, what you can do right now by yourself. Here's what I would tell you to do. Start boycotting the shit that you think is ruining the world. You think AI is making people...
That's it. No more Disney Plus.
people dumber and spreading misinformation? It that you think is ruining the world. You think AI is...
Literally, all I watch is YouTube. I get my news from YouTubers. I don't watch any big like news corporations. It's all fucked up anyways.
is making people dumber and spreading misinformation? Cancel your ChatGPT subscription. Do you hate seeing these social media companies make...
Wait, well, hold on. Let's not cancel the ChatGPT subscription, all right? Like, I gotta make some thumbnails every now and then, you know?
millions off of these subscription. Do you hate seeing these social media companies make millions off of these 5-second ads in between 20 seconds of scrolling and blasting your retinas with stupid stimulation? Then delete the apps or try to use them as little as possible. Find out all the consumer products that these companies own, which is almost fucking all of them.
I mean, bro, you're not even talking about like Vanguard and all the other ones. What's the other one? BlackRock or BlackRock? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like this is even the top of the ladder. Not all these companies are not all of these companies are inherently evil, by the way.
Try to not engage or buy anything from them as much as is reasonably possible. Secondly,
wait.
Anything from...
Is eBay on there? I've been trying to buy... I mean, I canceled my Amazon subscription. I think I got like a 7-day, like $1 7-day trial just to have something delivered like a couple of days, which I need to make sure I cancel it. But I've been trying to buy from eBay more.
From them as much as is reasonably possible. Secondly, we and you need leverage.
Wait,
Again,
Temu wasn't on there. We're good, chat. We can still buy from Temu.
Not accrue from simply getting more and more people to join a movement. You need leverage from people who have the power to actually sustain those movements and enact the changes. A huge part of the reason stuff like labor movements or the civil rights movement and even the fall of the Berlin Wall succeeded in the past was because they negotiated contracts, filed lawsuits, pushed legislation, and built networks that could sustain pressure for years. Mutual aid was also an incredibly important aspect of most of these. When workers went on strike in the early 20th century, they didn't just walk off the job and hope things would work out. They had unions, and those unions built strike funds to help workers pay for food and rent while they weren't receiving wages. They organized community kitchens. Their families supported one another. That's the sort of infrastructure that allows these strikes and protests to last for weeks and months or even years, which is sometimes how long it takes.
That's an interesting take. I never really noticed that. That's like kind of what it's about, I guess, right? Is that
these companies,
it gives you time to make that change without like completely having zero money from quitting your job. The thing is, that's just kind of more like per company.
Or the government to negotiate contracts and actually enact the change.
The thing is, I would not want a union taking part of my check just if it so happened to be that I had to protest in the union. Like, I don't think I can't afford for someone to be taking their money. You know what I mean? I can't afford to be giving part of my check to a union just in case something happens.
Leverage is what turns this outrage into consequence, because without it, it just runs the risk of being symbolic. It
I don't
runs
know.
the risk of being a movement where people are having awareness raised about this thing, and we think, yeah, it's really bad, but no one actually has the power to reach the institutions that are required to reach in order for something to happen. If you're looking for those communities and infrastructures that do possess some of that power, the first place to start is local. And the internet can actually be an incredibly useful tool here if you use it with a specific goal in mind instead of just consuming whatever gets thrown at you. Start by searching for organizations
That's
in your
so
city
bright.
that are already working on the issue you care about. If you're sick of housing costs in your city, type out tenant union plus your city into Google. If you're fed up with people in your community struggling to afford basic necessities, search mutual aid plus your city. If you're frustrated with wages, workplace conditions, or job security, search labor union plus your city. Most cities already have some form of these groups, and many of them operate through websites, email lists, or something like Slack or Discord, where they coordinate their real-world action. Another thing you can use the internet for is to identify who actually has influence over the issue you're concerned about. If it's a company, look up their major clients, investors, or partnerships. If it's a local policy, find out which council members or committees are responsible for it. If it's a landlord or development company, see which properties they own and which banks finance them. Then, once you've mapped out who actually holds influence,
Dang, that's a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie. That's a lot of work to deep dive like that. But I guess at the end, that's like kind of something you got to do if you're really upset and passionate about something.
have somewhere concrete to direct your attention. As far as eliciting change on
How do we get my taxes lower? How can we get lower taxes? That's the big kahuna, right?
grander scale, trying to take down the ultra rich, the biggest corporations, you would need some insane level of leverage. But to be honest, those smaller local movements is what influences the larger movements, the more global movements of change. I'm telling you, things are not hopeless in our digitized, hyper reality, apathetic, overpriced world. I'm sure that you've spent at least some sort of time thinking about a world in which we use all of these technological advancements to benefit the greatest amount of people. And I don't think it's as far off as you might think. You just need to be fucking inspired more on a daily basis, man, to get that juice and that energy to fucking stand up and do something about life. Get involved in something greater than yourself. Join clubs, engage with different forms of art, taste the flavors of life, help a stranger, face your problems instead of escaping them for another day and allowing them to grow worse. I'm going to sound sappy here. I don't give a shit. You are capable of way more than you could ever imagine. And I truly believe that. If you feel like you are not getting the power that you feel like you deserve in a certain area of life, you need to either create a movement or join a movement with the power to attain that power. Identify the source of your unfulfillment and the people you care about. Find the communities.
What you really need is someone doing it for some clout chasing bullshit. You know what I mean? Like every protest is and this and that. It's all like almost 99% of the time is some nonsense, right? I'll just say it. And it's really saturated to market. You know what I mean?
Find the pressure points and start the change. Channel
It's
those emotions.
saturated. There's too many protests to keep up with, literally. We can't all band together under one protest because they're too freaking separated. We can't all come together for the JE files because we're so fractionalized. Look, guys, I'm tired, okay? We've been running the train all day.
You're fucking fed up with shit into something positive. Do not let big tech and authoritarian regimes drain the joy out of human existence. Holding hope and optimism is your greatest act of rebellion against these chuds, and actually doing something
What does that
about
mean?
these forces is possible. Everything's going to be good and cool, but it's probably going to get at least a little bit worse before things get really.
It's got, yep, it's got to
take as much time if you actually.
It's got to. There we go. Cole Hastings, guys. It's his YouTube video. Anyways, guys, I appreciate y'all getting your ticket and get on board. And as always, I will see you at the next station. Bye-bye.